Can't.
But with members already heading home for Thanksgiving and the Christmas break just a month away, can anything get done in time?
Joining us now is Utah Senator Orrin Hatch. He is a member of the Joint Committee of Taxation and ranking Republican on the Senate Finance Committee. Senator, great to see you. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Well, it's always nice to be with you.
You know, as we speak, there is a concerted effort, sort of a lobbying campaign, if you will, on the part of the liberal base of the Democratic Party, including MoveOn.org, by the way, which is sending a message out to their members about what the president should do on whether or not to hike taxes on the top layer. And they say, tell President Obama to go to the mat to stop any extension of the millionaire tax giveaways and to bring back the progressive fighter we all knew and supported in 2008. Do you think this is going to have any impact?
That shows how stupid they really are, because, you know, if they got their way, taxes would go up for everybody 17 to 24%. Can you imagine that? And we've got all kinds of other problems that would occur from that alone. But the fact of the matter is that the Democrats have had not just 40 days now, they've had 4 years, basically, to do what they want to do with regard to taxes, and they've had overwhelming majorities both in the House and the Senate. And they're still not willing to come down and do what ought to be done. They don't have the votes to do the decoupling that they talk about. In other words, just make the tax relief permanent for the middle class, but hammer the so-called wealthy. They don't have the votes for that, and we don't have the votes either to, you know, to necessarily make all of those tax reliefs permanent, which is what I would like to do. So I think what's likely to be done is that I think, and if they're smart, they'll do this. They'll kick over the tax relief for everybody until after the next presidential election, so that we can get the politics out of it and then make a determination at that time what really should be done.
Okay, so let's go to that. Let's imagine that that's what's going to happen, Senator. And clearly there are so many people from both sides of the aisle who believe that now is not the time to sunset any tax cuts right now, that it could very well derail the very tender recovery that we've seen. But let's say your scenario comes into play and it is the next presidential election, so 2 years from now, that we would actually see any kind of movement there. If the economy were on firmer footing, would you agree at least to a sunsetting of the tax cuts on the upper tier?
No, I wouldn't. The fact of the matter is, I believe if we're going to get out of this economic morass that we're in, and like you say, it's a very tender, if anything, movement forward, I think keeping the tax relief alive, providing some certainty in the code, getting rid of the AMT, the alternative minimum tax, making the research and development tax credit permanent, these would all be, and of course, solving the death tax problem, these would all go to create some certainty in the system. I think the system would be expanded. I think we would have more jobs.
We'd have a bigger deficit,
this economy would go forward.
We'd have a much bigger deficit.
Well, that's not even true, because if we get the economy going, we can pay for an awful lot of things we haven't. Now, having said that, hopefully now that we're getting some Republican control over the House, not in the Senate, that we'll start cutting back on an awful lot of the excess bureaucracy that we have in Washington, and start cutting back on some of these programs that don't deserve all the support that they're getting. And if we do that and do both, we're likely to be able to make more headway than if we sit back and just try and raise taxes again, which would stifle any economic growth.
Senator, we have to go, but I just have to ask, if the administration came to you and said, we are willing to put a moratorium on all tax hikes for 2 years, would you accept that?
I think we'd have to as Republicans. I don't think we have the votes to keep those tax, you know, the tax relief permanent. But if they would keep the tax relief alive for at least 2 years, say after the next election, I'd prefer 3 to 5 years. Then I think most Republicans would probably say, well, we're probably going to have to go along with that, and that would be good for our country. It would be good for jobs. It'd be good for, I think, in the end, good for bringing down the deficit.
Senator Orrin Hatch of Utah, we thank you so much. We'll be watching this very closely. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can hear about the Justice Department's insider trading investigation on any business network.